Welcome to the Vault Excel. Thank you for your time. Happy hump day, everybody. Hope you all are well, staying warm. Lori Vallow Daybell has a trial date set. She and Mr. Chad Daybell will be tried separately. There's also information pertaining to her wanting the death penalty thrown out. Sorry, Lori. Chad, no, I don't think so. Second part of this live is pertaining to Brian Koiberger. We're going to talk about his sweet jail setup of him allegedly having access to church, a TV in his cell. As most of you know, he is in a separate compartment than the other inmates. 17 inmates total, allegedly. We're going to chop that up briefly. Thank you all for joining me, following the content of this network. Please check out my uploads from yesterday. I went live briefly from Concord. I was near the lake yesterday on a delivery, and I decided to give you all a brief view. It was very cold out yesterday, but nonetheless, Queen just decided to share a little bit of her daily run with you all. Thank you so much for following the content. Idaho 6 News is the source. Thank you for joining me.
Six are well underway for the Ada County trial against Lori Vallow Daybell, set to start in just 3 weeks. We now know potential jurors will start answering questionnaires at the courthouse on March 27th. That first phase will not be available to the public, but limited public access will be permitted to view official jury questioning from remote areas at the Ada and Madison County courthouses. Circumstances where jurors are questioned individually will be closed to the public. Religious beliefs are likely to be an area of focus for prospective jurors. The court argues closing only portions of that questioning will balance the rights of victims and the public while ensuring the defendant's right to a fair trial and impartial jury, while also allowing potential jurors to answer questions honestly out of the public eye. Court documents also show Lori Vallow Daybell will be in a Fremont County court in person this Wednesday for a hearing, and then she will be transferred to the Ada County Jail sometime before March 25th.
All right. Idaho 6 News is the source. Jury selection process laid out for trial against Lori Vallow Daybell. Portions will be closed to the public. The defendant will soon be transported to the Ada County Jail. Logistics are well underway for the Ada County trial against Lori Vallow Daybell, Eastern Idaho mom accused of killing her 2 children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, and conspiring to kill her husband's previous wife, Tammy Daybell. The murder trial is expected to last several weeks, beginning April 3rd. We now know potential jurors will be answering questionnaires at the Ada County Courthouse on March 27th and 28th. A court order filed by Judge Stephen Boyce says because the distribution of questionnaires is an administrative function, only counsel and the defendant will be permitted to observe. Lori Vallow Daybell is set to appear in Fremont County Court for a hearing Wednesday, March 15th, which is today. Then will be transported to the Ada County Jail by March 25th. You can feel free to go over to Twitter and look under Karen Lear's Twitter page to get the said affidavit from the courthouse pertaining to this transference of Miss Daybell. Once the official raw drive process begins, there will be limited public access via simulcast remote viewing in rooms in the Ada County and Madison County courthouses. Family members will be given priority and remaining seating will be assigned through a reservation system set by Ada County Courthouse. Very interesting information. As we previously reported, Judge Stephen Boyce recently ruled to sever the trials against Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell. Chad waived his right to a speedy trial in August of 2021 and repeatedly requested proceedings be delayed. His attorney, John Pryor, argued the state did not disclose evidence in a timely manner and that he would not be prepared for an April 3rd trial. A new date for Chad Daybell's trial has not yet been set. So I'd like to know why there's been a delay. Is that the truth? They didn't get all the evidence. His attorney, what's the truth? I'm going to bring you a little more information pertaining to Lori. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big Angie, 129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during the live stream. Let's get a little more information pertaining to this crazy crazy nonsense pertaining to these two. You can see they have no remorse whatsoever, killing those kids and killing these other people, wives and husbands. It's very, very sad. 1 second, you guys. Hope you all are well out there. Hello, everybody in the chat, viewing audience. I'm going to go to my community page where I keep a copy of everything. If you need to verify any information, it's from the YouTube queue and also my community page. This was uploaded 1 day ago. News Nation is the source. Lori Vallow wants death penalty dismissed. We got Mr. Cuomo weighing in on this said commentary. Thank you so much for your time. Hello, Sam and Mary. How are you all? Hello, Queen. Thank you all so much for joining me.
The death penalty on a mother, even if she is responsible for the murder of her own children.
As a prosecutor, Chris, I think she should be eligible for the death penalty, and I'd be fine in seeking it. But look, I'm realistic. I don't think she's getting it. It's really hard to get the death penalty against a mother. And I think when it's shown how the evidence that she murdered her kids, I think will actually play to the jury's belief that this woman is crazy. There's so much evidence of mental illness. And so I think that she will not get the death penalty, no matter how hard they try. Now, it's different for Chad Daybell, mind you, the gravedigger, as I call him, who became a cult doomsday writer. Well, I think he is more likely to get the death penalty. But for Lori, I think she'll be spared.
Chad Daybell, of course, is her fourth husband, anyway, but she was her husband at the time of these murders. There's some weird stories that may connect him to the timeline here. But Mark, explain to the audience what the plus minus is on asking for the death penalty in a case even remotely like this. It's very rare for a mother to kill her own kids.
And I agree with Dave. It's highly unlikely that she's going to get the death penalty. But from a prosecution standpoint, asking for the death penalty, and I don't think the judge is going to entertain the defense motion tomorrow for a variety of reasons. But the asking for the death penalty does, as a practical matter, condition or give you a jury that is more pro-law enforcement. The people who believe in the death penalty are generally, according to most studies, affiliated or share the similar belief system as law enforcement. So it gives the prosecutor an edge. I will cite back to the Scott Peterson case. The death penalty there was reversed, the case I tried, because the judge used the wrong standard during the jury qualification and basically excused all jurors who didn't believe in the death penalty, which is verboten under the U.S. Supreme Court. And speaking of the U.S. Supreme Court and tying this back up, they're arguing that because of her mental illness that she should not be eligible for the death penalty. So far, the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, has ruled that mental infirmity of the type where it is mental, somebody who has a very low IQ, for instance, should not be subject to the death penalty because it undermines the effects of what we want the death penalty to send out. This is not the same case. This is more an issue, and you and I talked about this last week, of competency, whether she's competent to stand trial, because she goes in and out, basically, at least on the basis of what's being reported.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to News Nation.
That's Mr. Cuomo and his guest, News Nation, as the source. Let's chop up what was said in this commentary. Mental capability in order to get the death penalty. They don't recommend it if a person is not well mentally, not stable. It took a while for her to even get to this point, as most of you know who's followed this content pertaining to Chad and Lori. So let's ask that question. Is she mentally unstable? Has a mental disorder, split personalities? She doesn't know right from wrong. Does Lori know right from wrong? Is he the reason she followed through with this nonsense of killing her children? Because I'm sure both are going to say not guilty. We also have information pertaining to her brother's cell phone pinging at the location of where the children were buried. That's information I found the other day. Well, they put it all on a dead man. Oh, he did it. But then you'd have to say why. Your attorney would have to say why. Why would the brother kill your children? What would he gain by killing your children and burying them on the property of your husband, boyfriend, however you want to word it? Is Lori mentally ill? Or is she just a follower? She was misled, coerced by this man for whatever sick reason. Some believe that he is a cult leader. Mr. Chad, depends on your, I guess, definition of a cult leader. Is he an influencer? Manipulator? Possibly. Because some people are easily manipulated. Is he mentally unstable? Not well. Is he off his rocker? And he met somebody who was also off mentally. We also heard through commentary over the years that Lori was trying to, I guess, reinvent herself through religion. She was deep into religion. But was she mentally gone? Or did she somehow get lost mentally in trying to be a follower of God? Because, you know, some people can become radical in trying to exact their faith in Christianity or whatever they believe in, and somehow they get lost. So is this the case with Lori? That in her trying to follow God, live right, she got lost, she got caught up, she started to lose traction. What's the truth? Or has she just been putting on in court, holding up the courts, wasting taxpayers' money? Also going to bring you content pertaining to that. How much money has been spent on trying to try this bat? So that's what you have to ask yourself. Is she insane? Has a mental problem. She doesn't know right from wrong. Same thing with Mr. Chad. Does he not know right from wrong? But they've got too many dead people under their belts. You see, you always have to look at the bigger picture. When you start seeing a bunch of people coming up missing and falling down dead, beat up, shot, you have to ask yourself, what's the common denominator? And so far, the common denominator is Chad and Lori. Double threat. So what are the odds? A dead husband. Chad's wife dead. Never been tried or convicted of murder of her. Out of the blue, Lori brother, he allegedly became ill. Too many people. Even if one is not foul play, most definitely Chad's wife and Miss Lori's husband is definitely foul play, I do believe. And now we have 2 children to add onto the list. It's a bad look. And when you start having bodies pop up, just dying one after the other, one would say you obviously have a lot of bad luck, or you've hurt these people. You've killed these people. Now, in real life, can it be that a person has a lot of death in their family? Of course. Mom dies, grandmama dies, aunt dies, son dies. But is there suspicion of foul play? That's the difference. Somebody died of cancer, somebody got hit by a car, no foul play. This case here, missing children, alleged altercation between a brother and a husband, ex-husband, boom, he's dead. This man's wife, she's dead before getting with Lori or while with her, however that goes, because I really didn't follow it because it was too winded for me. When you start bringing in too many players in a storyline, I get bored very easily. And these people had too much going on. Too much. So that's the main question. Will 12 members of the jury believe what her attorney has to say? She's innocent. She had no knowledge of the children being deceased. The one reason why I know she can't be too crazy because the court asked her to produce her children and she could not. Okay? And she never spoke on it. So that leads me to believe she's not crazy. Because I think a crazy person would have said something. Anything. She did not. She couldn't produce her children. She never reported her children missing. So this is where she's going to have a problem in front of 12 members of a jury to explain how she had no knowledge of what happened to two separate kids, two separate ages, two separate sexes. You know nothing. You did not produce them when the court asked you to, when you were mandated to produce your children, to put down all speculations, innuendos of where your children were, which we now know they were dead. That shows you were conspiring with this man to hide your children, to cover up their deaths, because you did have knowledge, Lori Vallow Daybell, of what happened to your kids. And that's where she's going to have a problem in the courtroom, because that's going to be asked. Well, you were supposed to produce your kids. Why couldn't you? Why didn't you report them missing? Two separate kids, and you don't go to the police station and say, hey, my kid didn't come home. I can't find my kid, blah, blah, blah. You never publicly spoke about the kids. Number two, yeah, my kid is missing. Yeah, both kids are now missing. Yeah, I missed my kids. Yeah, somebody's got my kids. Nothing. So that shows to me full knowledge of your children being gone, because a concerned parent would file a missing persons report. And that's where she's going to have a problem during trial, is never reporting the kids missing and never producing the children, never speaking on the children. That shows to me guilty knowledge. So the crazy, mentally disturbed, uneducated, whatever, however you want to word it, it's going to go out of the window. Mentally slow, low IQ, When you can jump on planes and trains, move from place to place, it shows you have knowledge of how to maneuver. You can rent a house, rent an apartment, rent a condo. That shows knowledge. Because if you have a low IQ, you wouldn't be able to do those said things. You have to be able to fill out paperwork. You've got to be able to verify things. And possibly a person with a slower IQ wouldn't be able to manage that without some type of help. So Lori had enough sense to rent places to live, move around from state to state, flying over here, over there to Hawaii, running in behind Chad, yet never saying anything when being approached in public by news agents asking about the children. Never answering phone calls again from the family members back in North Carolina about the children. But as you hear in this commentary, she's been married at least 3 or 4 times. So you do know how to go to the justice of peace or have a wedding ceremony. You have to apply for a wedding license, a marriage license. So you've got some type of sense. Some type. It's just a matter of your perception. If she's a follower or she's sinister as Mr. Chad. And the fact those kids were dead the whole time, nobody knew for damn near a year. They were buried on his property. Cold, calculated, heartless, diabolical, sinister, both. Brother, also 3 peas in a pod, not just 2. And how do you talk your own brother into killing your kids? So let me guess, he was also following in behind this cult orchestrated by Mr. Chad Daybell. What's the truth? Was Chad that lucky to find 2 gullible beings to follow in behind him? Possibly. Possibly. One moment, please. Going to take a brief intermission. Thank you for your time. Sorry about that. Thank y'all for your time. Where was I? Chad and Lori. They're going to have to hope for a sympathetic jury. You also hear in this commentary with Cuomo about the death penalty. Naturally, Lori wants it off the table. You hear this guest speaking of it being hard to put a mother to death. I want you to think about that for just a second. Why would it be hard to put her to death? She killed her kids and knew that they were dead. So the reason, the matter of death, who cares? They found those kids buried on her husband's property. As I said before, how are you going to explain that to 12 members of a jury? Why you never reported your children missing? They've been lying on this man's property for over damn near a year, so you never said anything about them publicly. Ignored people who were inquiring, trying to find the children, speak to the children. And here's commentary saying, well, I don't know if they'll put her to death because she's a woman. Well, I don't know about that. We'll wait to see what all has been said pertaining to the children, the autopsy, the shape they were in when they were found deceased. I'm sure the details are horrific. Because to me, murder is murder. No matter the mechanism you use to kill anyone, you murdered them and you lied about it. Never reported the children missing. Cut off ties with family members as far as giving information about the children's whereabouts. So I think perhaps there could be someone on the jury panel that would say, yes, Lori does deserve death. She does deserve death. And she can try to use religion and whatever crazy ideology she wants to use. It's not going to matter. Those kids are dead. They're not coming back. And they didn't do anything to her, her brother, or Chad Daybell to deserve death. No second coming, no third coming, no nothing. Because as you see, it's 2023 and we are still here. So no zombie apocalyptic BS is going to work in front of 12 people that we are praying will be sane enough to dissect and accept the evidence against the two. Sadly, we do have gullible people, sick people. And one thing we've learned about a tainted mind, if your mind is already tainted, it wouldn't take much for somebody to come along and push you all the way over. And I think she already had issues, mental issues before, because she already had a few husbands under her belt. And then, God forbid, the last one she met was, I believe, already married to somebody else. Then that wife goes dead. And then out of the blue, here comes her 2 children missing. She has a dead husband through an altercation with her own brother. It's too much. And you have to be literally blind and deaf not to see and hear that there's something off with this lady. And Chad, and also her brother who is no longer living. And I do believe they're going to use the brother as a scapegoat. What's been asked also on News Nation is, will she turn on Chad? Because as you see and have heard, the two are going to be tried separately. So what will her defense be, and will she implicate her dead brother and Chad as the co-conspirators and the killers? Because if you implicate your brother, Lori, 12 members of the jury are going to say, well, how can you implicate on something you didn't have any knowledge of? So how's that going to work? How are you going to implicate those two? Because that means you had knowledge. Or you'll say, I didn't have knowledge, but this is my defense attorney's mode of a defense. to say, well, somebody else did it, but not her. But then it still goes back to what I've already said in this commentary. Whether she plays possum or not, pleads not guilty or not, you still can't explain why you didn't report the children missing. How's that going to work? So whatever version you give in court, it still won't matter because you never reported your children missing. You never brought forward the children when you were mandated by the court to bring them forth. And so you're going to have to explain that to 12 members of a jury. Why you couldn't. And how is it that your children were found in graves in the backyard of your husband's property? How are you going to explain that? Oh, I don't know anything about it. I don't know where my children were. What you mean you don't know where they were? You're the mother. You're the mother of these kids. So how would you not know where your children are? So I don't really agree with this synopsis of she's a woman, she can't be put to death, nobody would vote to put her to death. I don't know, because she's already costing this state a lot of money. For those who have been paying attention, and I'm going to play that briefly. Thank you all so much for joining me. Welcome to the Vault XL. Let's dissect this massive amount of money that's being spent on this trial for Miss Lori Vallow. News Nation is the source. Vallow Daybell has so far cost taxpayers $3.6 million. This is Banfield.
Cases are expensive. And I know that because Curtis Smith tells me that. He's a criminal defense attorney. He practices in the state of Idaho, where Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell will answer for three, count them, murders. Curtis, thank you for being with us. Do the people of Idaho have the financial gut to withstand the sure to be over $10 million to carry out both of these prosecutions, let's just say all the way to an execution?
Well, thanks for having me on, Ashley. I think the answer is yes. They're not going to like it. Obviously, Fremont County is a county that only has just over 13,000 people. And what you were showing there is, $1.5 million, and north of that, and after trial, it's going to be a lot more than that. It's estimated that each trial will take approximately $700,000 to finish it off. It's interesting, though, because I think a lot of these costs are investigative costs. I think law enforcement has worked very hard to put this case together, and a lot of it has been expensive to do. And now we're getting to the point to where the trials are going to cost money too, but I think a lot of the costs have been expended and can be used in both trials.
Good point, right? The investigative work can be used in both trials. But listen, billable hours. I was just talking to Trent Copeland about it. Lawyers are expensive, and they're going to not only have defense lawyers, probably public defenders, they have to be paid as well, but prosecutors have to be paid. The investigators have to go all the way to Hawaii to arrest these two. But then we get to the cost of execution, and that's where it really ramps up. Most people think it's cheaper to execute people. It's way more expensive to execute people. Do you think the business of the firing squad, which right now is actually making its way through the state legislature, would that make things less expensive? Would it have any bearing at all? Is it just a headline grabber?
Yeah, I don't think the mechanism of death in Idaho will change the cost. I think that this is one of those things where when the death penalty is on the table, we're taking obviously the most sacred thing from somebody, and that's their life. And I think that the courts want to get that right. We've had a lot of cases that we've seen around the country where DNA has freed people that have been wrongfully prosecuted for particular crimes. I've been involved in some of those cases here in Idaho where I had a client on death row for 19 years and eventually DNA showed that he was not the perpetrator. So we want to get it right, but these cases take time and money and effort to make sure we get it right. And then once convictions happen, if they do in this case, then obviously there is an appellate process that's mandatory in Idaho that will be done to make sure that we're getting it right. So yes, it's going to be a big bill and taxpayers are going to have to pay that. And these are small counties and there's no telling what this bill is going to end up at by the end of the trials as well as the end of the case completely.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to check in with you regularly, because if we're at 3.6 million now and we haven't even started the main litigation, I think we're going to have a regular meeting. Curtis Smith, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching.
That's Banfield. 3.6 million thus far to try these two nimwits. And you also heard commentary pertaining to 700,000 to put forward this trial for Lori. This is bad. Small state, small area. Try these two. All for killing some kids. She didn't want the kids. She should have asked some other family members to take them in and went on about her business with Chad. Hello, Sweet Tea. Thank you for joining me. $3.6 million for murdering two kids, innocent kids. This is sickening. And this is what happens in the world. It's always the little people who have to pay the piper in the end. Besides the deaths of the kids, they were sacrificed. Now, regular civilians have to pay the piper to try these two nuts. This is bad. $3.6 million. That's a lot of money. And that's just so far. She hasn't even gone to trial yet, Lori Vallow Daybell. And just dragging this out. Because every time they delayed going to court, appearing in court, that's money. It's like anything. You go to court for something, especially if you are a defendant, it costs you to stand in that courtroom. Every time you stand in there, you have to pay that court cost, that fee to stand in there. Unfortunately, the fee here is for regular civilians. Her appearing in court, public defense trying to put forward a trial, and the state. Yes, it is a waste. But we want justice, so this is the swap. Innocent people paying the price for these courtroom hearings to get justice for two innocent children. That's the swap. Some will say fair, some will say not. Depends on your perception. What will be the defense for Lori Vallow? I was lured. I was misled. I was under duress. I was what? She's going to put it off on Mr. Chad or her brother or both. Will he speak up? Let's talk about Chad for a minute. Will he speak up and say, I love this woman. I wanted to do anything for her, keep her, be with her. She wanted her kids dead to get them out of the way, to be with me, or just didn't want them. Wouldn't that be interesting if we find out he turns on her? He decides to talk, possibly won't tell the truth because both look like they don't know the first thing about telling the truth. Could it be that he will be the one who will tell some type of cocked up version of how the children ended up buried on his property? Because he can't blame the brother for putting them there. Because why would the brother put the kids there? You had to give him permission. Now, did the brother kill the children? I don't know. Did Lori participate in murdering the children? I don't know. Did Chad participate in murdering the children? I don't know. But I believe all three are involved in the conspiring, planning, murdering, and disposal of the children. Because they're all evenly yoked. And what would be interesting is if we find out Chad decides to speak to his attorneys and tell them the truth or a half-baked truth or what happened to the kids and how they got to be buried on his property. And he may just put the whole blame on Lori and her brother. I did this for her. She wanted them gone, blah, blah, blah. He may even say, I had nothing to do with it, but I just let them bury the kids there. Or he could say, I was gone. I was out of town. They must have dug the graves while I was gone. How's that going to work? Because information is out now that the brother's phone pings at that said location, his home. And the dead can't speak. He can't say why his phone would have pinged there. Oh, I went over there for dinner. Went over there to go hunting, or you understand what I'm saying? That dead man can't speak for himself. So it's up to the state to put up a timeline of events when the children were reported missing and no one had contact with the children versus the phone pings at that location? How many times did a phone ping come up at that location belonging to the brother or anybody else affiliated with these two monsters? This is a diabolical case as well. Very high profile case. And what's sad is such a small place in the West to be talking about foolish and mayhem pertaining to two kids. Two kids who were snuffed out cruelly for no damn reason. And there's really no reason to ever kill a child. I don't care if you have an unruly child. You may think your child is demonic or possessed, then you may need to seek help from your local pastor, rabbi, priest, if you see where I'm going. Or you do what most people do. You just call the Department of Human Services. Say, I can no longer handle my child. But I do not believe that was the problem with these children. These are two evildoers alongside the brother, 3. And as I said, I don't understand how in the world he could go along with killing his own family members, nieces and nephews. What in the world could someone have said to him that would lead him to kill these kids? This is diabolical, and it's sickening that you have all these different entities, did not know one another, Lori or Chad, at some point in life, but they all became evenly yoked alongside her brother in mayhem, killing of kids. You can't make this stuff up. And prayers to the extended family who had no knowledge or dealings as far as killing these kids. Let's talk about Mr. Brian Kohlberger. Thank you for your time. Well, now, it was a while ago that we heard about the jail where he is residing, Latau County Jail, that they had pizza parties at this jail, which was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. So my thing was, if we have a jail that has pizza ordered, special menu order because he's allegedly a vegan, why? Why is this? Whoever heard of pizza being served in a jail, especially if it's specially ordered, and it didn't come in a frozen package? Why are you all ordering pizza for inmates? Which is, hey, I'm sure they were happy to get it. Any inmate would be, different than eating beans and cornbread every damn day. But nonetheless, we're getting more information in this jail. Do not know if all this information is true or not, because whoever's been running the News Nation, their feet should be hurting by now and knees bloody, because they have really been gawking and talking over there to this news desk. And you don't know what's the truth pertaining to all this information coming out about the participants who are alive from that house, GM and Bethany. Now information pertaining to Mr. Kohlberger having his own private TV. Naturally, he's in solitude to protect his safety. People writing him letters and talking about him on social media sites, in love with them, groups supporting him, social media groups and sites. He's able to go to church if he like. Wednesday Bible study, Sunday Mass. What the hell is going on in this jail? Television, which I can't believe. Pizza served in this jail. Catering his food because he's a vegan. Who gives a damn? What about the other inmates? Maybe they like to have their own TV in their cell. How many are allowed in the cell? I hear there's only 17 in there. So how many cells do they have total? Number one. How many people per cell? What the hell is going on in this Latau County? You are making a mockery out of these children's deaths. All of you who've been running the News Nation and making up all this stuff that we don't know if it's the truth or not pertaining to what the hell happened in that house on that fateful Sunday morning. It's utter disrespect to the dead. Utter disrespect to the dead and also the living, which are the parents, family members of the kids. I've also got information about that property being acquired by the University of Idaho, and they're going to tear that house down, which they should. And a little garden area right there would be just perfect. Make it just a little miniature park, dog park, memorial for the kids, because the land is tainted, even without the structure being on top of it. I think most of you know that. And you know, the Indians have their own theories about tainted ground. You can remove the structure, but the land is tainted. The land is tainted. So whether it's park benches there, memorial of the children, it's still tainted. Because no matter what, 2 years from now, 18 years from now, people always remember that piece of lot as a house of horrors. The night the 4 kids innocently were brutally stabbed to death. And this Sting accused killed them, allegedly. Nobody will ever forget that. And it would be creepy going up and down that street, either by foot or by car. And imagine the people who live next door thinking to themselves, damn, I was living in this house when this thing came and snuffed these kids out. It's no laughing matter. It's serious business. And that's why all this running to News Nation with all these whack-ass stories and versions of Kohlberger and Peter Paul Dick and the 2 left behind, it's outrageous. Because you don't know what's the truth. You don't know what to believe. Let's go to News Nation to talk about this jail. Thank you all for joining me. Kohlberger is one of 17 inmates in the Latah County Jail. News Nation is the source.
He has spent 10 years in multiple federal prisons at several different security levels. He is now the director of Wall Street Prison Consultants and Coaching, which trains people how to survive behind bars. People like Bryan Kohberger, who maybe have no idea what's in store. Larry, this is really interesting. We found out there are only 17 inmates total in that 2,000 square foot lockup, and the other 16 are in for things like aggravated assault, drug possession, lewd conduct with a minor, domestic battery, probation violation, and some other crimes. So set the stage for me. What would you have told Bryan Kohberger, were he your client, before he went in 69 days ago?
Kind of exactly what he's doing. I tell him to keep his mouth shut, because anything he says or does, you know, it's kind of like the Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do can and will be used against you. He's not stupid. He knows they've already built a case up on him. And what benefit would it be, let's say, for him to talk to a shrink, to give the prosecution ammunition? I would just tell him to play it out. And that's kind of what he's doing. He knows he doesn't have a prayer. He knows they have mountains and mountains of evidence against him. So what benefit would it be for him to talk to anyone? Nothing. He knows he's going to be convicted. So he's just taking it easy. He's like skating through the system. There's nothing that could really be done for him. So I just tell him, be cool, you know?
But
I couldn't give him...
If you're stuck, though, in seg, right? If you're in segregation, I mean, I would imagine that's part of the awfulness of the punishment, is just being, you know, kept from human contact, just from the normalcy of life itself. Wouldn't you avail yourself of anything at all, whether it's a dentist or a mental health checkup or a meeting with the warden, or just anything to have a conversation with someone?
Okay, well, we don't know how often his lawyer visits him. So there's human contact. We don't know how often he visits the dentist or the doctor. There's additional human contact. For all we know, he could have a religious figure come and talk to him on a regular basis. He doesn't have to go to religious services. There's additional contact. An officer has to take him to the showers or out to the rec yard, you know, how many times a week he's going to be doing that. So he has human contact. He's not in total isolation. They're letting this guy have a TV set.
You know, the reason why he can choose the channel is it's a different TV because he is in segregation. So now he has in his mind outside communication watching whatever TV shows there are. So is he really in isolation? I don't see it like that. And he has to go to, or he doesn't have to, he's going to these Bible study or religious sessions with people. Yeah, he can't talk to people. I've seen that before. I've also seen people bring notes out and hide them in Bibles and such. And people exchange messages that aren't even supposed to talk to each other. So we really don't know what's happening inside that jail or what's going through his head.
Yeah, we do know that other inmates have been taunting him, which I suppose is not unusual. But
no,
I'm going to have you back for, can you give me just 30 seconds on what advantage it would be to taunt a guy who's in SEG? You can't get to him anyway. And I am running out of time, but I do want to hear your answer there.
Well, the other inmates, they know he killed a bunch of people. These are just petty criminals that are in there, and they know that they're going to get under his skin. And I see this happen in prisons a lot of time. They're probably telling him that he's going to get the electric chair. They're going to hang him. They're going to fry him. They're just doing it to get his goat. There's no real advantage to it. They're just doing it themselves to pass the time. I did it too when I was in custody. I would say things to people I knew that may not happen, just to pass the time, I guess, for my own sick personal amusement.
Wow.
Well, there are those
He's
17
honest.
other inmates, so they were just flashing on the screen. Those are his roommates, so to speak. Larry Levine, always good to have you on. Hey, right. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Go to...
That's Banfield, everybody, talking to Mr. Larry Levine, who's been incarcerated and has some type of jail services program. Let's chop this up, and then I'm going to check out of here. Happy hump day to the viewing audience. Thank you for watching The Vault XL. He has his own TV, possibly no access to the channel directly. They have to turn the channel, perhaps. I don't know what's the truth or not. I'm not in Laptop County. I ain't trying to go over there to look to see what's going on. Let's be honest. Kohlberger was already alone. So imagine being alone in your own head, your own body. You can't relate to people. You can't relate to men, women, children, your family, women. Then you commit a horrific crime, plural, to end up in a jail. But yet you had freedom. Those kids didn't know you. You didn't know them. You had no reason to kill those kids, allegedly. And you already felt alone in the world. So why in the world would you risk your freedom to go lie in a jail and do life or possibly get the death penalty? Because he didn't care. He's heartless. He's a narcissist. He's a busybody, a know-it-all. That's been said about him. He has to have the last word. He knows everything. Well, he obviously didn't know everything because he didn't know his dumb ass was going to end up in jail. Ding. But that was his choice. He put himself there. Lots of things you can do to get yourself in trouble to end up incarcerated. But this is the one crime you don't want to be going down for. Because what was the point? Did he kill the kids to prove a point to himself? I could do it. I want to see what it's like. Doesn't matter. He had no business killing those kids. Now you're in this jail cell, already tainted before you got in there. Your mind is already jacked up. Now, you make this crazy, heinous decision to put yourself there. Already alone. Listen at me carefully now. Already alone in your own head. And then you go kill these kids to now sit in a jail cell alone. He wouldn't be able to gain anything by being with other people anyway. Because he can't relate with people, Mr. Levine, Miss Banfield. So it doesn't matter. He's not your typical criminal that wants to be in the company of people and talk and laugh and share whack-ass stories, what they were doing on the street before they got arrested. That ain't Kohlberger. Didn't have a lot of friends. Didn't know how to relate to people. So what stories is he going to share in the jail? He would be more or less like a teacher or professor, doing exactly what the hell he was doing when he was free. Being a tyrant. And I don't think that would go very well with the other inmates. And he knows that if they let him loose, he's a cooked bird. So he is right where he wants to be, in solitude. I doubt he wants to be with everybody else. Because he can't relate. And naturally, he would fear for his safety. Them taunting him. Doing what? Yelling stuff? Who cares? Most people don't really care about Kohlberger anyway. And like I said, all this he said, she said, running the News Nation with all these whack-ass stories about that house and the kids and living, deceased, who survived, didn't survive. It's all BS. As far as him going to church, I could care less. His salvation and fate is between him and God. I'm a human, so I'm flawed and I can judge. I don't care about Kohlberger. But he doesn't need to have any special treatments. I will say that. No pizza parties, no television set, nothing. He wants to go to mass or church, that's his business. Will it mean anything? Hell no. Can you be redeemed? Of course, but you'd have to want to be. So you have to ask yourself, can a person be redeemed from killing these people viciously? That would be between him and God. Because only God will know the truth if Kohlberger has any remorse, and I doubt that he has any remorse because he's pled not guilty. I want to be exonerated. But usually exoneration means you've already been convicted. You're entitled to your opinion. Who's been coming to see Kohlberger in the jail? Does he have regular visitations? Monday through Sunday. Every other day, every day. If so, who has visited him? Who has sent mail to him? Has he responded to any mail? Has he responded to any of the visitors? Does he have a tablet, access to a tablet? I do hear they give you tablets in jail. Does he have his own personal tablet that they give for a couple of hours through the day until the battery runs dead? What is he watching on TV since he has a TV set? Does he ask to turn the channel? See, all this is stuff I don't really care to even discuss. But because they keep acting like it's breaking news, News Nation, I go ahead and bring you the said information. So has he gotten mail? Who's writing him? Has he responded? Who's putting money on his books? How much money does he have on his books? How's he being treated in there? Is he being treated fairly? How does he feel to be locked up and not be able to roam around and peep through windows and doors and stalk people on IG? Can't be too nice. Does he have access to the internet? That's a good question. Because I believe this is how this crime unfolded. Came to light is by him being on the internet, scrolling innocent profiles, gawking at the pictures, sending messages, got angry because nobody responded. And now we have 4 dead people because of a wicked, sinister creature. 2-legged creature at that. But in the end, nobody cares about Kohlberger but probably his own family. I don't give a damn about him. Because he could have been out here trying to live and make it like everybody else. We're all flawed. We all have problems, mental disorders, mental disabilities, quirks about ourselves. But you just don't go out here and hack up people. Stalk innocent people and then hack them up. Break in their house and hack them up. That means you got some serious shit going on with you and you need to see your therapist, psychiatrist, whatsoever. Or you might need to try Jesus because he's on the main line. That's possibly who you should have been seeking first, was Jesus. Because once you hack up people, I don't feel like there's anything left. There's nothing left. There's nothing left in you. There's nothing man can do with you. There's nothing no one can do with you. You're in God's territory when you decide to start killing people. That's just the way I look at it. There's nothing man can say to you, do for you, because it would never be enough anyway. They can't reach you mentally because you're in a whole dimension, a whole universe, another planet rather. You're somewhere else because you're not here with us. And do we all have evil thoughts? Of course. Some of us thought about doing wrong, hurting people, even killing people. Of course. But you don't act on it. Because that's what you have to tell yourself. If I cross over, I could possibly get caught. Then what? Now I'm facing murder charges. Even if you feel like you're in the right. Somebody's been harming you, bothering you, stalking you, causing you problems, taunting you, bullying you, whatsoever. Verbally abusing you, physically abusing you, sexually abusing you. All the little nasty things that people do to you. But you have to tell yourself, when I cross this line, I've already at the point of no return. And I don't think Kohlberger cared. See, I don't think he was the type that sat and said, Now, if I get caught, this and this and this, I'm going to be in here. There's no bond. I don't think he gave it another thought. And I only believe he came back to be extradited to Idaho is because he wanted to see what they had, what they have on him. That's all. You hear her mentioning the type of people that are in the jail: drugs, domestic abuse, some sexual assault, children. That's pretty heinous. That's right up under murder to me. He could never function if he was out in front of people. I think we all know that. There's no way they could let him out of that cage into general population of the other 16 members in there, or whoever. They'd beat him to death. And he would fear for his safety anyway. And they want to make sure this thing goes to trial. Does he have a mental disorder? I don't know. Be interesting to find out. I don't see Kohberger willingly talking to a therapist, as you hear Mr. Levine saying. He needs to be quiet. Don't give the state any ammunition to use against him in court. But the only way Kohberger will talk will possibly be down the road when all measures have been exhausted in appeals, and then he decides he wants to talk to some movie producer or somebody doing a documentary or a psychiatrist. Then I think that's when he'll talk. But he knows not to speak and say anything, as you hear in his commentary, so nothing will damage him in a courtroom when he goes to trial. But I'm sure he's itching to talk because he likes to be the center of attention. And when people like being the center of attention, that requires talking. You can't be the center of attention with your mouth closed. You're going to have to do or say something to draw attention. And he did that by killing those kids. So the next best thing is to talk, to speak, give your rendition, who you are and how you came to be accused of killing these kids. So he wants to talk. Oh, believe me, Kohberger wants to speak. He wants to speak badly, even if it's to lie about knowing those kids and how he came to be at that house. He's going to lie all the way to the end. I don't know him. I didn't bother him, blah, blah, blah. But he knows they have evidence against him. We also have new information pertaining to things being redacted from search warrants. I'll go over that briefly. But he wants to talk. He wants to tell the world who he is. Anything that's been said about him that he thinks is untrue, unfair, he definitely wants to let you know. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. I'm not any of those things. Then you might want to say, yeah, I am some of those things or all of those things. I'm tainted. I'm messed up. I'm jacked up. I got mental disorders. I'm jacked up. Not a bad guy. It's just I got pushed. I'm sure many people have his mindset. I'm really a good person, but you crossed me. But I don't think that would level up in this situation with these kids because so far there's no receipt that these kids had any dealings with Brian Kohberger. So he would be in his own world making up stuff about why he killed those kids and what led him to murder those kids. He's diabolical. And sadly, he's not the only one walking around. There are more Kohbergers. They just haven't been caught. They either have not acted out or they have not been apprehended. But it's on its way. That's the sick part of this world. Kohberger is one in how many? Is he an incel? I don't know. Don't really care. Because when you minus the titles, he's just a lump of clay that's tainted, sinister. Don't matter the height, the weight, the race. Scholastically inclined or not, short, tall, fat, you're sinister. And you're walking around here mad at the world and lashing out as if you're the only one that has problems, issues, disabilities, insecurities, flawed. We all got something going on, but you just don't go out here and kill people because Your mindset is jacked up. You can't get along with people. You don't know how to interact. That's a personal problem. Then change it. That's all you have to do is change it. And he chose not to. He could have been out here living just like everybody else, but he chose not to. That's a Brian C. Kohberger problem. And he made sure that he never have to worry about the outside again when he killed those kids. And I do believe he killed those kids. That's my personal assertion. Let's go back in here and get a little more info pertaining to this nut. News Nation stays on the grind pertaining to Kohberger. You can best believe that. Everything is about this nut. 60 companies in Idaho case. Search warrants have been exacted pertaining to Brian Kohberger. News Nation is the source. Thank you for your time. Well, Don, if they put him in regular population, he'll probably die, sweetheart. And we want justice for the kids. He needs to stand trial for killing those kids. He needs to be able to get tired and restless in that jail. And he can't get that way if he's dead. If somebody decides to shank him in there. So we want this buffoon, we want him alive.
Banks like Bank of America, Discover, Wells Fargo. 3 warrants went to AT&T and Verizon. Social media platforms, Reddit, Snapchat, and Facebook's parent company, Meta Platforms, they got a warrant. Match Group, which owns 45 different dating sites like Tinder and OkCupid, they got a warrant. Both of the Coeur d'Alene and Moscow Police Department's forensics labs, they got warrants, which is intriguing, right? Because it's the cops sending the material there. And Blue Ridge Knives and K-Bar Knives, they got warrants. So for that, Trent Copeland is the best guy to talk to because there are all sorts of reasons why warrants like that would go out. And they may not be exactly as we think. So Trent, when you see the big long list, first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is the police are much further ahead in this investigation than we give them credit for. Remember, actually, there have been some people who've criticized the Idaho police, calling them Keystone cops, small-town cops, not big enough for this job. I think we have to take another look at that. And I'm not one of those persons that believes that, and never did at any point. But I think we've got to give them their kudos at this point. They are far ahead in this investigation, much further ahead than I think any of us ever knew. And what we know is that what police are attempting to do at this point is triangulate the evidence. I think what this all suggests is that their search warrants suggest that first, they're seeking to establish there was a digital connection between Kohberger and the victim. That's why Tinder, Match, all of those other companies, many of whom have the dating app websites, particularly Tinder, Yik Yak. And remember, Yik Yak, very popular with college kids, very popular because you can communicate anonymously. I think what police are establishing or attempting to establish is that there is a digital connection between Kohberger and these victims. Not just any old random connection, but a deep personal connection, such that, and I think you suggested a moment ago, such that intimate things may have been exchanged. Kohberger may have said things to these women sexually. Kohberger may have said things to these women because he was attempting to go out on a date with them. He may have been rebuffed by them. So those are the kind of things that I think we're looking at in the search warrant. Second, I think the digital evidence also establishes that the motive potentially, because I think once the evidence is established and can be established that there was a digital connection between Kohberger and these women, I think we'll also begin to see that maybe having been rebuffed by Kaylee, having been rebuffed by Maddie, that may establish the motive for why he was so obsessed with them and why he wanted to grab them.
Right. We're guessing about the Kaylee Maddie business because what we do know is that Kohberger had reached out to one of these victims. And then we have sources at News Nation who we've spoken to close to this investigation who said that there was more towards Maddie and that neither of them had responded. So that could be certainly looked at as a rebuff, even though many times people don't even see their DMs. I know there's a lot of DMs I don't see. So, okay, another question I wanted to ask you about, because it could be confusing to some. Many of these warrants were issued for these companies well before Bryan Kohberger was even on the radar. And so it's interesting to sort of see the way they were going to find the person and then the warrants that went out once they found the suspect. So walk me through the significance of warrants after you have a guy as opposed to before you have a guy.
Well, look, Ashley, I'm gonna disagree with you. You say these warrants went out before they had their guy. I think these warrants went out when they knew or reasonably suspected that they probably had their guy. And I think you do correctly say sequence matters. These warrants went out before he was arrested, and these warrants suggest strongly that they knew that whoever it was that committed these murders, they strongly suspected that it was Bryan Kohberger. Because remember, it was in November when they knew that white Elantra had been near the scene. They knew that in November. He wasn't arrested until late December. So I think what the police were doing is, again, triangulating this evidence, trying to put it together, placing him at the scene, digitally connecting him to the victims, and then establishing the motive. Again, in 3 stages, placing him at the scene, digitally connecting him with the victims, and establishing a motive as a result of those 2 things that have happened. So I think the police are much further along with this. I think they're working hand in glove with the prosecution. I really do think, Ashley, that we're moving at breakneck speed, or at least the police investigators are moving at breakneck speed to match this case, to put this case together. Because remember, that preliminary hearing is upcoming, and they want to be able to show the goods to this court as to why this case should move forward to trial.
Boy, I'll bet they were happy when Kohberger's defense attorney wanted so many months before this hearing in June. Like, they were like, thank you. It's like manna from heaven.
Played right into their hands. Played absolutely right into their hands.
Sure, investigators' hands, and then I would think also like the prosecutor. Attorneys love time. It's it's helpful in putting your case together, and B, billable hours. I don't need to tell you, John Copeland. Thank you, sir. I love having you on. Please don't bill us for that because I want to have you on longer next time.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching. Go to News Nation now.
All right, everybody, that's Banfield. News Nation is the source. So, many search warrants. 60 companies. That's a lot. Date sites. How many date sites was he on? How many profiles did he have on date sites? Did he actually use his own photograph, his own picture of himself on any date sites? Or did he just have a blank profile? What all was he scrolling on social media? The dark web, underground entities, IG, TikTok, Facebook, so on and so forth. How many women was he reaching out to? Will we find out that there were other women or girls that he reached out to, messaged, and did not get a response? Was he stalking any other women? K-Bar knives. Do they have an idea of a purchase? Do they have information of a purchase of a knife they haven't revealed to the general public yet? Where is that infamous knife that Kohberger used allegedly to kill these kids, if you are to believe that he is the sole culprit in the murders of the 4 Idaho students? What information do they have for clothing receipts? When did they actually put in warrants for cell phones, date sites, data, all of this? Because as you hear in this commentary about the Elantra, was early on, a few weeks after the deaths of the kids. Yet he was able to travel across the country, which a lot of us were baffled and disturbed by that. Some of us, upset because we couldn't understand why you all weren't gathering DNA while he was on Washington soil. Kind of makes no sense, because if you're going to tell us now after the fact, we believe he was on the radar, that car was significant in, locating him, tracking him, then you should have been able to get DNA from him before he ever left the state of Washington. Because this was around the 25th or the 29th of November that his car was seen. So once you saw who he was, driver license photo, description of him matches the description that DM gave, then you all should have been following him to the trash bin to retrieve trash. Or went to him directly and asked for a DNA sample. Hi, you fit the description of someone that we are investigating in a crime, and we need your DNA. Naturally, he would have declined, but that's why you go to a judge and show probable cause. So that's one part of the story that does not sit well with me. It's the beginning with finding his car and not retrieving DNA, because that's contradictory of now saying, oh, perhaps they went in early getting search warrants for phones and apps and this and that and devices. Then DNA should have been on the top list, wouldn't you think? Because you need the DNA more than anything. That puts him at the crime scene, which we do have information that touch DNA was on the button of the sheath that was lying beside Maddie Mogen's body. What entities have been searched pertaining to Brian Kohlberger? 60 different entities. I'd like to know all those, because that is a lot. What is the evidence they have so far against BK? Has evidence come back relating to DNA, his own, at the crime scene, fingerprints somewhere else in the house, going in the house, door handles, sliding door? Any hair left behind of his? Did any of the victims grab his hair, scratch his face? Is his DNA under the fingernails of the victims? It's a lot of questions you can ask, because we did hear that a few of the victims fought back. Do not know which ones, but then one would say 9 times out of 10, BK's DNA is under their nails. How are you going to explain that to 12 members of a jury? Brian Kohlberger. DNA on the sheath button of a knife. No mention of a knife being found. Your DNA under their nails. God forbid if your hair was pulled, grabbed, eyebrows, anything. How are you going to explain that? You didn't know the victims. They didn't know you. They didn't fraternize with you. What is your hair, DNA, skin cells doing in that house or under the fingernails of the victims or on the victims? Also sweat. A lot of things you leave behind when you go in a person's house. You don't even think about it. Very interesting storyline. Diabolical, but very interesting. And the sick part is he's sitting in a jail comfortable. 9 times out of 10, no remorse for the deaths of these kids, the murders of these kids. And he's just waiting for his trial date. Will he speak? Will he testify on his own behalf? Probably not. But as I told you, he wants to talk because he's a narcissist and he likes to be seen. And he's known to give his opinion of others, critiquing their schoolwork. So he's busting at the seams to be able to speak. You can believe that. Now, has he said anything to incriminate himself inside that jail cell since being in custody? I do not know. But he wants to talk. As I said, it may not be what you want to hear. It may not be to admit he killed the kids, knowing the kids, a motive for killing the kids. But he wants to speak because you don't have his type of demeanor and he want to remain silent. No. Kohlberger wants to talk. The gist of the story is it's probably not what you want to hear. But most of us will want to see what he has to say because he wants to talk. And I do believe in time he will talk because most killers do. Whether they tell the truth, own their responsibility for killing the victims, but they will give some half-baked version of events. May not admit they murdered the person, may not admit the motive, but they want to say something. And most people are probably waiting on that moment to hear what he has to say. So how do you all feel about Kohlberger having a TV in his cell? The other inmates have access to a television, but those are several others watching a TV set together, not individually. Special treatment as far as a diet. which most people would say that's not a diet. That's just a choice of how you want to eat. It's your choice if you want to eat meat or not. But it's not really a diet just because you're eating vegetables only. That's just a choice. Everything's about perception. So is it true he's still getting a vegetable plate only? And if so, why? Because you have to treat everybody the same. And if you're not treating everybody the same inside that Latah County Jail, then those other inmates could easily get a lawyer and sue to say, you all brought in a heinous killer and gave him special treatment with vegan diet, vegan choice of meals, and a TV set individually because he was locked down in solitude for safety purposes, but nonetheless, that's still violating my right because I'm in this jail and I deserve to have my own TV as well, if that's the case, considering it's only a few of us in here. That's what they'll say. He got special treatment as far as food, his own personal TV. Where's mine? God forbid he's got his own tablet in there. So what else are you all giving him out of the norm? Because that may come back to haunt you all later down the road. Because those inmates also deserve the same treatment as Kohlberger. Doesn't matter what their crime is, because you see he's the only one in there for murder. Plural. So he should not get any special treatments because he's in solitude. That's his choice. He can come out of there at any time. It doesn't matter if they recommended it or not in the beginning. Hey, they'll hurt him. Hey, we think he'll kill himself. He could have easily said, I'm okay, I'm fine. I'm not suicidal, and I'm not worried about anybody hurting me. But I'm sure in the end, it's still left up to the chief or whomever to say, no, we're going to leave him in solitude because we don't want to risk anything happening to our golden boy. Once again, who's visiting Kohlberger inside of the jail? How many visits does he get a week? Does he receive visitors, accept visitors? Does he receive letters, gifts? What all does the Latah County Jail chief allow inmates to receive inside of the jail? Paper, pen, underwear, what? Socks, what? Or do they supply all of their clothing? I'd like to know. Any random people in the community visiting Kohlberger? Pastors, rabbis, random people. Who has been visiting him? Who's on his list? Commissary, what has he ordered? How much money is on his books at this moment? Who's putting money on his books? What does he eat? Since you all keep running the News Nation with all this bullshit, what is he eating? And why is he getting, once again, special food? Because in the end, as I said, it is a choice just to eat vegetables. Some would say it's not a diet. It's just a choice. But what about the other inmates? How's it fair to them? Naturally, some of them won't be in there as long as Kohlberger, but they're still in there. So this is where I have a problem. It's bad enough he snuffed these kids out. But then he's in jail eating certain foods and now has his own private television. So one might say, hell, I'll just go to jail on purpose, commit a heinous crime, and then I'll get put in a solitude, and I guess I'll get my own TV too. I mean, you have people that think like that, navigate like that. Interesting. That's my commentary for this afternoon. This is a two-part live pertaining to Lori Vallow Daybell. Trial date has been set. She and Chad will not be standing trial together. She also wants the death penalty thrown out. You will hear commentary pertaining to someone's opinion that possibly she won't get the death penalty because she's a woman and was a mother of children. But I pray that 12 members of the jury will see fit that she dies by a needle to the arm because she has no regard for life. I do believe she's conspired with Mr. Chad to kill his wife and her own husband. So she needs to die, whether they brutally murdered the children or not. I don't care. The kids are dead. And my thing is the manner of death means nothing to me because they're children. They didn't ask to come here. They didn't send for Lori Vallow. She brought them here. So therefore, she brought one here and she took care of one, brought him into her fold. That's a choice. She murdered her children. And the brother is no longer alive to say either way, but she deserves the death penalty, in my opinion, because she's killed more than 2 people, and I believe that. And Chad, he deserved the needle to the arm as well. Second part of this live is pertaining to Brian Kohberger. Sweet jail setup. 60 entities got search warrants to bring forward information against the said perpetrator. 17 inmates total inside the Latau County Jail. A lot of he said, she said, running amok the past few months pertaining to News Nation and Kohberger and the kids. I'd like to know who is this person that keeps talking to News Nation. How many people have been going to News Nation, giving us information pertaining to allegedly what happened that morning and what has been redacted from the original affidavit? Will we be shocked to hear more crazy nonsense when this trial starts? Has he been stalking other victims? Did he reach out to other victims? Did he plan on killing more people? More women? Was he stalking any students at WSU? Will there be testimony to this account of him stalking other women? What was his plan after killing the Idaho 4? Did he plan to kill more women? Or was he just cooling off? And what was he going to do while in Pennsylvania? I've been curious to that too, due to the information that's come out of what's been seized from his parents' house. Did he plan on killing anyone there? I found it interesting. They said when they took him in that fateful morning, he was in the kitchen or something, or in half dress, putting things in small bags. It's very interesting to me. Disposing in the trash. Why? You can't make yourself disappear, so trying to cover up your DNA fingerprints is pointless. Because you live in that house, you're visiting that house. It's your parents' house. So how are you going to hide your DNA when you're alive and living? This is why you know he's stupid. Putting trash in different, bags, plastic bags or Ziploc bags? What was it? How are you going to hide who you are as a whole human being? That's what I couldn't understand when I read that or heard that. That when they did the raid at the house, he was putting bags of trash and little bitty bags or whatever. What kind of bags? Grocery store plastic bags or Ziploc bags? And you didn't think it was going to be suspicious you running around in the dark, dropping trash off in your neighbor's trash bins. This is why you know he does not have any common damn sense. And this is an old myth about smart people, allegedly, that they're smart scholastically, but they have no brains as far as common sense. And you would think the two could go together, because how could you have book sense but no damn common sense? But obviously it's true. And I also asked that question the other day. Did he think he was on the radar? Please take that poll on my community board. I'm going to go over that poll too while I'm on live before I check out of here. Because I kind of think he knew that they were on his trail. That's the whole purpose of him going in the trash bin to the neighbor's trash bin, emptying trash. And also when they did the raid at the house, he was putting trash in little bitty bags or so. He knew they were on to him. He had to. That's why he was doing all of that. It's very strange. This man is just a dodo bird. He had no common sense. The next live I'm going to bring you, I'm going to talk about a woman's body that was found in an airport. Sat in there for about 23, 24 days, dead. I'm going to talk about that storyline. And also, one day ago, News Nation has commentary about why are bodies being dumped in Baton Rouge. We'll talk about that too. I'll probably do another 2-part live. They're also saying that Kohberger is watching coverage of his own case. This was uploaded a day ago by News Nation. Feel free to check that information out. There's a lot of craziness going on. But I'm going to go to my community board and give you the polls that I put up recently. Hello, everybody in the chat. These are the recent polls and the stats. Should Sarah Boone go to prison for murder of boyfriend? If so, what charge or none? I put second degree, you all said 72%. Manslaughter, 17%. Not guilty, 1%. Negligent homicide, 10%. Did Jorge climb into the suitcase on his own, asked by Sarah Boone, or he was inebriated, put into it by her? He put himself inside, 9%. She asked, he got inside, 69%. He was drunk, passed out, she put him inside, 22%. So 69% of you believe she asked him to get in the suitcase and he got inside. Very interesting. Did Sarah Boone set up the murder of boyfriend? 74% of you said yes. 15% of you said no. 11% of you said not sure. Does Sarah Boone have remorse for murder of boyfriend? 4% said yes. 85% said no. 11% said not sure. Very interesting. With the search warrant affidavit of Brian Kohlberger's parents' home being released, do you think that he knew that Ellie was on to him, following him when he was in Pennsylvania? 79% of you said yes. 21% of you said no, and there was a comment. Crazy P says he knew he was separating garbage and placing it in neighbors, allegedly. So 79% of you do believe that he knew that law enforcement was on his trail. The past live streams I've done, which has not been that many, but I've brought you information pertaining to Shantiri Weems. She's given her explanation to why she shot her husband. I've also posted to my community board the death of Lisa Edwards here in Knoxville, Tennessee. She died in the back of a police paddy wagon. She was claiming she couldn't breathe. I believe she had COPD. They were removing her from the property of Fort Sanders Hospital. She had been released by some other hospitals. I do not know what she was trying to do at these hospitals, but nonetheless, she ended up dying later in the back of a police paddy wagon. And her family is outraged at that said death of Lisa Edwards. A lot of information on my community board. I do not talk about every story, but I will bring you updates. But yes, my next live stream will be pertaining to a woman found dead in an airport parking garage. How is it that a woman lied dead, allegedly from suicide, inside of a car? No check-ins, no check-outs. Also, a car was stolen from that garage. Somebody's not keeping up with the cars coming in, which I find very baffling, because I remember when I came from New Orleans, coming up 2 years this summer, I got a ticket going into the garage, and I put the ticket in the machine, and it computed my time. Okay? To tell me how many days my car was in the garage. And it gave me an amount that was owed. And the only way I could get that car through that turnstile, whatever, was to pay. So I'm trying to figure out how is a dead woman lying in a parking garage and nobody smells anything. And I could have sworn they said something about a sunroof was open. So I'm trying to understand. Please tell me you're not talking about the sunroof of the car was open with the dead person inside. Because how could you not smell death? 23 days dead inside of a parking garage in her own car. How did it come to be? And also dumping of bodies down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Who is killing these people? I'm going to bring you that said information and any other updates. And there's also an update of a school teacher on my community page that's been accused of soliciting and having sexual acts with a 12-year-old boy child. She is of Asian descent, or Asian nationality. I believe she's Asian. Why is this young woman seducing young boys, having sexual acts and sending naked photos to a child? The one thing I've come to realize about women who commit these crimes, I guess men as well, to me, these are people who obviously didn't have a childhood, because there's some type of sick fascination with children, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. Why would an adult want to have sexual relations with a child? Because it's sinister either way, whether it's an infant or a toddler or school age or even high school. But someone in their 20s having sex with a 12-year-old, why? What do you have in common with a 12-year-old boy? And a lot of times in these cases, when there are women offenders, they don't get a lot of time in prison because many people just can't wrap their head around a woman seducing a child. But it happens, and we've seen this with Letourneau seducing her boy child, end up getting pregnant by him, ordered to stay away from him, but still kept sneaking around with him and got herself pregnant. It's diabolical. And it doesn't matter if it's a man chasing him behind a boy child or girl child, or a woman chasing him behind a boy child, girl child. It is disgusting. And these people need help in their thought process. I'm going to bring you information pertaining to that possibly. This school teacher. I may just do a 3-part live. I'll decide. But check out my community board on that said subject matter. I have it posted to my community page. Thank you all so much for your time. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $BigAngie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during the live stream. Thank you for those who tuned in. Happy hump day to everybody. Please stay warm. Stay safe. This was a 2-part live pertaining to Lori Vallow trial date set and Brian C. Kohlberger, his sweet setup in jail. Thank you, Pat, for joining us. You all have a wonderful, wonderful week. You have been listening to The Vault XL.